Welcome to another episode of the Alamo City Sportscast with Mike Jimenez and Joe Garcia. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Join the discussion as we broadcast live from beautiful West San Antonio. And remember to tip your hosts as it helps the show grow.
What's up, San Antonio? What's up, South Texas? This is the Alamo City Sportscast coming at you from beautiful San Antonio. Typically, I'm inside Joe's house doing the show from his studio, but today, greetings from my own kitchen, my own living room, my own dining room, and hello to my scruff. Day 5, day 6 of the scruff kicking in. My goatee gonna fill out just like Joe Garcia's. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. It's a big day in my life today because in an hour, I have a court date on Zoom to become my stepson's legal guardian for the rest of his life. Excited about that. My boy Justin, I post photos all the time of me and him getting enchiladas. He's one of the best things that's ever happened in my life. And despite all the things that goes on in the world and what's going on with relationships and whatnot, my boy is my boy, and I love him. I love him. So we're doing this show early, Joe. You know, we're doing it from 10 to about 10:55 today. If you want to take over after 10:55, you know, by all means, go with it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do the show at 10. Maybe 10 is the new time. I mean, I'm kind of digging this, you know?
I don't mind going at 10. Usually we do 10:15 because you're rolling in late.
Yeah. And maybe you know what? Maybe we could do it at 10 o'clock or so. And I have all the access to everything. Do I sound okay, by the way?
You sound all right, but we need to get you a really nice mic. But you know what? Yeah. We can get that done because I have an extra mic. I got an extra cable. I even have an extra USB audio interface. So we can take care of that. That's no problem. And I got a microphone stand for you.
Yeah, very cool. My Surface Pro has a very good camera. So it's a very clear shot. Back in the day when I was at Sports Star, I had an old Surface Pro that didn't have that good camera, but now we've got this.
But you don't have the radio voice. You know, when you're here in the studio, you get that radio voice with the microphone.
Yeah. I have a microphone, but it has a USB port, and the Surface Pro doesn't have a USB port.
I got you.
We've got to figure something out when it comes to it. But
get that figured out.
As always, big show today. The Dallas Mavericks are in trouble. They are in trouble. They fell behind 3-0. They're on the verge of being swept of the NBA Finals, losing 106-99 to the Boston Celtics. We're going to hear from ESPN's Brian Windhorst because if you haven't heard this, he eviscerated Luka Doncic. I was kind of taken aback, man. I clutched my pearls. I kind of went like this, like, oh my God, what was going on? But is he right? Brian Windhorst going off on Luka Doncic is basically saying, dude, this is your fault. And by the way, your attitude sucks.
I don't know what was more impressive, him going off on Luka Doncic or the fact that they were able to fit Brian Windhorst in his square. They always have trouble fitting that brother in the square. This time they zoomed out.
They shot it from the third row, man. But is he wrong? Is he wrong? We'll get into that. Lots of pop culture news today. On Hulu, premiering this morning, was a new documentary called Brat.
And I saw that.
Brat Pack. And Andrew McCarthy, that actor from the 80s, did a documentary about the Brat Pack. And, you know, it's all those big stars of the 80s, those iconic John Hughes movies and back in the day, and how they didn't like that name, right? He's going back in time trying to find every single member of the Brat Pack, and he confronts the person who wrote the article that labeled them the Brat Pack. So very interesting. We'll talk about that in a while. I know, Joe, you have a documentary that you want to get into.
Oh, yeah. The documentary that I want to get into is something that I saw. It just, I guess, came out recently within the last week on Paramount Plus, and it's called How Music Got Free. Mm-hmm. And this is a great documentary, especially if you're a certain age, because you remember the Napster and the LimeWire era, you know, where you were able to download in the infancy of, you know, broadband internet. You're able to download all these songs. Everybody had these burnt CDs, the equivalent of what was it? You know, like what would they call that when you would your playlist, right?
Yeah,
your playlist on a cassette tape. Yeah, and it just transitioned from a cassette to a CD. But they're talking about everything that happened behind the scenes. You even have like iconic artist of the day like Eminem, 50 Cent coming out. You know, you had a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes with the record labels and them trying to fight piracy. And it was cool how they were able to get like because remember when we used to download these CDs, right? Or download the music, you would have the group name who released it, APC or whatever it was that their name was, because they would release it in the very beginning of the track before the music would play. And you're like, what is this? They were just kind of putting their stamp. It was brought to you by this group. And they show those various groups and in the race to get this music out first. And the funny thing is you get to find out where the source came from, and it's from a totally let's say unlooked source that you would have never thought would have leaked all this music and got it out first. It's amazing. And it's an amazing documentary. It has 2 episodes and they're about maybe 45 minutes in length, something like that. But it's an easy to watch documentary. Great stuff, man. You got to watch it.
I like how Jeff Garcia from Locked On Spurs and Ken Spies said, why is it that when we were doing things on LimeWire, we thought that the federal government was going to break down our door to come and charge us? We were afraid as 18, 19, 20-year-olds getting this. Dude, how many computers were killed because of Napster and LimeWire? And then I remember Lars Ulrich from Metallica getting all pissed off about
that. Man.
He still is. He still is, man. He's still that guy. A Texas legend passed away. The news that Johnny Canales has died at the age of 77, I believe. Johnny Canales, a Tejano music legend, based out of Corpus Christi. He had that TV show that was very popular all through the RGV, all through San Antonio into Houston, basically bringing Tejano music to the forefront back in its heyday when it was at its peak with Selena and artists like that.
Raulito, Emilio,
all that stuff. Johnny Canales. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I remember the catchphrase, man. I hadn't heard the name Johnny Canales in a while, but take it away. I mean, that was his line. You all may make fun of me for being the coconut, right? But I am of age of watching my dad watch that show and him saying, take it away. Speaking of my dad, it's Father's Day this weekend. We got to take care of our dads, for those of us who are fortunate to still have them around. My daughter yesterday said, Dad, if you really want your scruff to grow in, go do some yard work. Go do some manual labor. Is that true? Does that make the scruff come out even more? Because I'm looking at the screen right now. Yeah. I haven't had it like this in about 20 years, and it's only 6 days in. Only 6 days in. What's it going to look like after 2 weeks? What's it going to look like after a month if I do decide to do that?
Well, the dogs recognize you, man, when you're coming through the door.
You know what? Maybe they'll respect me more.
Duncan, the OG.
Yeah.
The gangster dog you got there, he'll be like, give you a little nod. What's up?
We are 912 subscribers strong. Again, making our way to 950 by the end of the month, 1,000 by the end of July. That's when we party. That's when we celebrate. You can be part of the show by leaving a comment, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. It helps steer the show, man. It helps gets us going and it contributes. We enjoy that. We enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, look at what JC's saying, man. Shout out to JC. He says, good morning, gents. 1998 T1 connections at Texas A&M. Because that was the fastest connections you could get back then when you were on campus, because they had all the high-speed internet back then. And you were kids back then when you were going to school, man. You were just downloading tons of songs, putting them on the CDs, dude. Great stuff, man.
And dude, we'll never be young again. We'll never be young. But back in the late 90s, the Spurs had a superstar that came to the surface named Tim Duncan, right? And we were all excited about Tim Duncan and what he was bringing to the team. And it's interesting whenever you have these phenoms come out, right? And they actually deliver. They actually deliver. I don't know if Luka Doncic was considered the phenom, but when he came out, he was the number 5 overall pick.
Yeah, a lot of hype around him.
It was the draft day trade for him and Trae Young were swapped. One was drafted at 3, one was drafted at 5. And Luka Doncic came into the league. And the biggest knock that you've had on Luka has been his durability, has been his health in the sense that he doesn't seem fit, right? You make fun of the fact that he's kind of in real life, Luka Doncic is a skinny guy. Right, compared to San Antonio, compared to Dallas, but when you compare him to the elite superstars in the NBA, the LeBrons and the Jason Tatums of the world, he's not like that physically. He's more like Zion Williamson physically than he is LeBron, than he is Jason Tatum, than he is SGA or any of the stars in the NBA right now. And last night, the Dallas Mavericks fell behind 3-0 to the Boston Celtics. And as the game started, you're thinking to yourself, can Boston survive the storm in the first quarter? Because you know the crowd was going to be amped up, and they were, man. They were standing up the entire first quarter. Dallas goes out to a double-digit lead right off the bat. First play of the game, Luka getting a bucket. Then it's Kyrie. Then it's Luka for a three. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, Dallas is going to get things back to normal a little bit. Kristaps Porzingis out more than likely for the series, out for the game yesterday in Game 3. And he was a big catalyst in Game 1 for Boston. And Dallas seemed to be somewhere midway through the first quarter in charge of the game. Then Boston kind of chipped away at the lead, chipped away, took the lead in the second quarter, and in the third quarter opened it up. Now, Dallas did make a run down the stretch, but Luka Doncic fouled out. How do you foul out if you are the superstar, if you're arguably the best player in the NBA? How do you foul out at that point? And then for him to then scream at the bench, challenge that play, when everybody and their mama knew that it was a blocking foul. He fouled out. Now, Kyrie did what he could to keep them in. They got within one possession, but ultimately, Celtics pull away and win this game 106-99. Jason Tatum looks like he's going to be finally get the love and respect that he deserves. Jason Tatum last night, 31 points on 11 of 26 shooting, had 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Jaylen Brown with 30 points as well. Derek White, another big night, 16 points, knocked down 4 3-pointers. After the game, Brian Windhorst went off on Luka Doncic. Let's hear from ESPN's Brian Windhorst as he kind of just eviscerates arguably the best player in the NBA.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and play the audio now.
Luka and Kyrie combined for actually more than Tatum Brown did, but Luka fouls out late. I just wonder your reaction to that whole sequence.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect that Luka fell onto the ground there in an unacceptable position to put himself in with 4 minutes left with 5 fouls, and then immediately looks at the bench and says, you better bleeping challenge it, as if it's the bench's fault that he just made a terrible play. I'm standing here in the Mavericks tunnel. Over there is the Celtics tunnel. That's where the winners are. If Luka's ever going to be a winner coming out of this tunnel here, he is going to have to use what's happened in this finals as a learning experience. His defensive performance is unacceptable. He is a hole on the court. The Celtics are attacking him. They are ahead in this series because they have attacked him defensively. And you've got a situation here where Luka is complaining about the officiating. They have begged him. They have talked with him. They have pleaded with him. He is costing his team because of how he treats the officials. He's a brilliant player. He does so many things well. They are here because of how he did. His performance in this game is unacceptable and the reason why the Mavericks are not going to win. He's got to get over this. And the fact that he came out after the game and blamed the officials showed me he's nowhere close yet. So maybe over the summer somebody will get to him because nobody with the Mavericks or anybody else in his life has. And that's where the Mavericks are at this point. They're never going to get to this tunnel with the trophy if he doesn't improve those aspects of his game.
Yeah, so that was the audio, man.
Brian Windhorst on ESPN. A little bit of an echo going.
Yeah, I got it out.
So here's the thing about it. There's a lot to unpack on that. That was a minute 13 of Windhorst just going off on Luka. And I went back and forth with somebody today on Twitter asking the question, well, why is it that they're going after him? Because he's never been very good defensively anyway. And the thing about it is that Luka Doncic is so good offensively that more often than not, you can mask what he does defensively, right? More often than not, there's a net positive to what he's doing. Yeah, he sucks at defense, but offensively, he's so great that it's a net positive. The problem that you're having is that there's no net positive against the Celtics. Jaylen Brown attacking him, Jason Tatum attacking him, Derek White attacking him. And as Brian Windhorst has pointed out, the point of attack when it comes to the Celtics is go after Luka. Just keep going after him. First of all, it makes him play defense, and it makes him spend energy that way. But secondly, he's a revolving door, man. He sucks defensively. He's got a little bit better, but it's gone from being god-awful to just plain still sucking when it comes to defensive effort for him. And then it brings up other things that Brian Windhorst was talking about, the way that he treats the officials. Now, I understand that all superstars are crybabies. Luka Doncic is a crybaby, so is LeBron James. And back in the day, Tim Duncan was a big crybaby when it came to the refs. The question, Joe, is does Luka Doncic take it too far?
Yeah, man. Here's the thing, too, with Chris Gonzalez, and he brings up a good thing because me and you are both like, hey, the Mavs are going to win this one, Who have the Boston Celtics beat as they had an easier path in the Eastern Conference to the NBA Finals because the teams they were playing in front of them were all decimated with injury. But when you're looking at what the Celtics have done to the Mavs, they're just a mere shell of what everybody thought they would be up to this point because they had a harder path to the finals. Luka Doncic and both Kyrie Irving were playing at a high level. But even with that said, facing this Boston Celtics team, that surprised me because I would have never thought that the Mavs would be down 3-0 to the Boston Celtics based on what we saw out of Kyrie and Luka Doncic. To me and you, I think right now the biggest word that we can sum this up, disappointment.
Well, one of the big things that no one seems to be talking about is the fact that had they started that series right away, I think Dallas would have been in this series, and Dallas could have easily have won this series. I think you and I were right in thinking that a 6-game series for Dallas was very, very possible. But the last game that Dallas had in the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Timberwolves was May 30th. First game of the NBA Finals was June 6th. 7 days passed. Dallas was feeling it, man. They were in rhythm. They were in a groove. And then they had to sit there and wait for a week for the NBA Finals to start. And it's just because the NBA Finals have to start on a certain day, right? Yeah. The Celtics are ready to play. They could have started the series on June 2nd, but that's not what the NBA does. The NBA has these scheduled on certain days. So both teams waited a week. And because of that, Dallas cooled off. The momentum they had went out the door. And on top of that, Boston then had 7 days to game plan and study film of the Dallas Mavericks, and it just gave it too much of an advantage to the Celtics.
Yeah, look what David Outwater says. Boston had 9 days off based on what the Mavs had. And the thing is, too, JHNSB said, Mavs are not the same team they were against the Wolves. I already forgot that Gafford existed, Yeah.
Tim Gonzalez coming out saying, Tatum must have heard Mike ranting on him, so he went off last night. Well, Tatum's going to get the love, right? I mean, that's the thing. Tatum has been always that one superstar that didn't get over the hump, all right? Chris Paul III has been that guy, and to some extent you have Jason Tatum being that guy as well. But Tatum's not doing it alone, man. It's this Celtics team is just, death by 1,000 cuts, man.
And what's going on with Jason Kidd? That's a good point that JHNSB brought up, Mike. Look at that. Kidd, for everything that he did right in the Mavs trek to the finals, where's all that play calling gone?
Well, I mean, you look at it, and right now the bench, not so much the bench, the role players of the Boston Celtics are playing significantly higher potential right now than the Dallas players, right? Derek White is playing at an elite level. You might look at his stat line and go 16 points. It was 16 elite points. You saw Porzingis in game 1. Al Horford making shots. Al Horford's probably older than me at this point, and he's out there making shots.
Don't forget Derek White, man. Derek White's been great.
Dude, he's been fantastic, and just up and down the lineup for the Celtics has been so good. Game 4, which might wrap things up.
I think it's going to be a wrap, man. You look at the body language that you saw last night, Mike, after this loss. What does that tell you, man?
Yeah, most definitely. And players like Drew Holiday are very important. I mean, think about defensively. Drew Holiday is a very good defensive player. You put him next to Derek White, and that backcourt is pretty good defensively, man. And they're letting Luka go off for 30. They're letting Kyrie go off for 30. It's just they're clamping down on everybody else. It's been a low-scoring series, man. 106-99, just 215 points. I think all 3 of these games have gone under in points. It's because Boston is holding Dallas down offensively. But going back to Brian Windhorst, when he's going out there and saying that Luka is attacking the refs and that basically he was being a big bitch after the game, complaining about the officiating because he fouled out with 4 minutes to go, and saying that Luka has not grown as a player and that Luka is still doing the stuff, and that the Mavericks team is tired of it. That low key, sources are telling them, or maybe they're telling Brian Windhorst directly, dude, we're tired of this guy crying. It's one thing to cry for fouls, right? Again, all the greats do it, and Spurs fans, Tim Duncan was one of them. All the greats cry for fouls. But how many of them bitch for fouls?
No.
Because there's probably just two in the NBA that do it that way, and that is LeBron James and Luka Doncic.
Yeah, look
They're
at what
probably the two
Joshua.
that go overboard when it comes to it all.
Yeah, look what Joshua A says. Brown, the Finals MVP so far. I can't argue with that, man. Jaylen Brown has been stellar, dude.
Yeah, but I agree. I think Jaylen Brown's been the best player on this whole team. He's been the most consistent player, but he's not the superstar on this team. Jason Tatum is.
Yeah, but he's saying Finals MVP. I think the Finals MVP, if the Celtics win, you got to give that to Jaylen Brown, man. He's been stellar from the Tatum.
It's going to go to Tatum when it's all said and done.
It shouldn't.
He's the superstar when it comes to it. Now, well, I'm looking it up on OddsShark right now. The odds of winning Finals MVP have been updated, and Jason Tatum is plus 140. Jaylen Brown is plus 155. So maybe there is some truth to it all. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to give it to Tatum because Tatum's the bigger name. Tatum is the one who made an all-NBA team. Jaylen Brown is on the outside looking in. Remember, there was that big controversy as to whether or not Jaylen Brown should have been a member of an all-NBA team. I know Shaquille O'Neal talked on his behalf. Jay-Z reaching out to us saying, Derek White MVP. Derek White's going to get a ring, man.
Yeah.
He's going to get a ring.
You know what? And deservedly so, dude. Once he left the San Antonio Spurs, he flourished with his Boston Celtics team around what? A better cast of player around him. He was able to flourish, do his job, and he didn't have to be called upon to do so many things with the Boston Celtics as he did with the San Antonio Spurs. Couldn't be happier for Derek White, man.
Pluto Pinch of Sports comes out and says if Brown can win the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, he can win the Finals MVP too. I'm not saying that it's impossible. Kawhi Leonard was the Finals MVP for crying out loud. And in 2013, here's the thing. If the Spurs had won the Finals in 2013, correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't it have been Danny Green? Danny Green probably would have been the Finals MVP in 2013 had they won. I mean, that's what I wish that Joe Reinagle and Jason Minnick had asked of Danny Green.
Freaking Danny Green. Would you have been the
Finals MVP
if they won?
If they had won, if Ray Allen's shot had gone off the back of their iron.
You know what they should have asked Danny Green? They should have told him, why did Coach Pop make the shittiest call in NBA Finals history by pulling out Timmy?
But not putting Timmy in the last play.
Yeah.
Well, why would you want to have one of the greatest defenders of all time on the bench? I'll never understand that. Yeah. And even pop apologists agree with that statement. That was dumb. That was dumb. But Derek White's going to eventually. What's that again?
Poodle Peaches Sports. They said, I'm wearing my Spurs Derek White jersey the remainder of the series. Living vicariously through Derek White.
Well, and those are the players that get you over the hump. You need two superstars minimum to be good. And you need to have these role players out there who know their role and do their job well.
And you need to have a good guard. You need to have a good point guard.
Derek White and Drew Holiday can both bring the ball up. Drew Holiday is a point guard. Derek White has point guard abilities, the combo. But they're playing very well. But I just keep going back to Brian Windhorst. I mean, why would Brian Windhorst just say, you know what? End of game 3, I'm going to go after Luka Doncic. There's something that he knows.
He's disgusted, dude. He's just disgusted, man.
Yeah, and I guess he's just tired of the body language. Now, here's the thing, Joe. Luka Doncic, if we know that right now, Luka Doncic, as of right now, June 13th, 2024, is one of the 3 best players in the NBA. If you want to say that it's Jokic, if you want to say that it's Giannis, Luka, those are the top 3 more than likely in whatever order you want to put them in. But imagine if Luka Doncic was physically fit, like at an elite level. What if Luka Doncic wasn't there downing 6 beers after a game?
I mean, he's rocking the dad bod out there on the court.
What if he didn't have a dad bod? What if Luka Doncic wasn't smoking here? Because he probably smokes Marlboros at the Marlboro Reds at the end of the game, right? That's the European thing. Oh, that is the European thing, right? What if he wasn't doing that? To think about the fact that he had to have an executive come by and grab a beer from him and go, dude, seriously? Your body's a temple, and he's treating it like an Arby's. He's treating his body like a like a fast food restaurant. He doesn't do things. He probably doesn't have that.
Jeez, look at Chris Gonzalez. Luka's the guy in the Hawaiian sweats, bro.
Dude, he's so good. But imagine if he was in elite peak physical condition, and he's not. Photo Picture Sports comes out and says, what if Luka cared about defense as much as he cares about complaining to the refs? And you know what? It's funny because, I'll never say that I have the same bona fides as an NBA official. I do high school basketball up to the 6A.
Different levels, man.
Now, I have done college. I've done college scrimmages and stuff like that, but I've never done like a college game. I've done a scrimmage. It's different. It's a different thing, right? But there's an art to working over an official, right? There's an art to getting him to look at something a little bit differently, get him to, keep an eye out for a certain play or whatever the case may be. But there's also a point of you pass a point of no return where you're not actually doing yourself any favors. Now you have the official turning against you.
Oh,
right?
my God.
What
Look at
happens?
that, Salinas. He's in European peak physical condition.
Hooligan level fit. Great line.
Oh, my God. Look at this. Gert Vanderkip, man. Thanks for watching this from the Netherlands, by the way. He says, not every European does that, Mike. LOL.
Did I get all am I
man.
generalizing the European?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny, man.
He
But
put
again,
he's
forced tomorrow.
why does Joey Chestnut look like he's an athlete and Luka looks like he's a rat contestant?
Dude, Luka,
Oh,
man,
God.
and that's the knock on him, and he'll never change.
Look at
Zion
Luka is
Williamson
in Marbach condition.
Luka is Marbach condition.
He's fluffy.
I mean, Luka looks like he eats breakfast tacos in the morning.
Yeah.
He looks like he eats beignets for snacks, and he downs 3 or 4 pints. That's what he looks like.
Even Gert says I'm in better shape than Luka.
But,
Everybody's mad about about that Chestnut dude.
I wonder what the response from Luka is going to be.
Yeah.
Because is he going to come out and say that Brian Windhorst of ESPN is wrong? Or is he going to come out? Because if he comes out and says that Windhorst was out of line or Windhorst was wrong, it's going to look even worse because we all know that what Windhorst said was the obvious truth. He has gone from crybaby to another level, which is basically being a little baby bitch. That's what he's doing.
His coach needs to come out and tell him something. But you know what? I'm sure he'll get fined by the NBA.
Who's that?
Luka. He's going to get fined by the NBA.
For going after the
Definitely.
officials.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, he's trying to work the officials over. We have coaches who do that at the end of games, trying to work the coaches, send a message out there. They absorb the fine and they just move on with their day. But this is a little bit different, man, because Luka has that reputation. He has a reputation of being a whiner. And he and LeBron James take it to a different level, take it to a higher level, which is kind of why it's one of the knocks that I have on LeBron James when people ask the question, is he one of the best players of all time in the NBA? Obviously he is. But I can't consider him to be a GOAT because he's a bitch when it comes to the officials.
Always whining, complaining, over dramatic, dude. You barely touch the guy and he throws himself on the floor.
Yeah.
He's in writhing pain on the ground, then gets up after everybody's clapping for him. The camera's always on him. I'm like, come on, man. You've even seen the reaction from the opposing players, right? And they're on the bench and they're just kind of rolling their eyes, looking at him. Like, come on.
My favorite meme of LeBron James is LeBron James ever on page 2? Because they always show him in the locker room reading a book, and he's always on page 1. He's never like halfway through the book. It's always page 1. But
upside down. Read the book upside down.
Continues tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and say the Mavericks get one game and that the Celtics take care of it at home. Don't you want to win at home anyway? Just make it so. But I'd like to see Jaylen Brown be the finals MVP. And would Jason Tatum be okay with that? I'm sure he'd be okay being a champion and whatnot.
Why would you not be okay with one of your teammates?
This is supposedly Tatum's team, man.
If it was your team, brother, they would have paid you, man. They paid Jaylen Brown. I think that sent a message.
Well, Tatum's is not due yet, I don't think, yet for a fine for a contract extension. But he's a max guy, man. He's going to be a max deal. But, we'll talk more about this later on this week. The NBA draft is, in 2 weeks? Less than 2 weeks?
Yeah, less than 2 weeks. I think we're about, 13 days away now.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget to follow Jeff Garcia from Locked On Spurs and Ken's 5. I am actually today's guest on Locked On Spurs. We're answering listener or viewer questions, so I'll be doing that. We're also asking the question about, whether or not the Spurs are going to have that rebuild that Danny Green's predicting, which is basically him saying 2 years, 3 years tops, we'll be back in the swing of things as Spurs fans. Now, one of the questions that Jeff asked that I thought was kind of funny, and I'm going to ask you this question. When you say that the Spurs are back and that the rebuild is over, how do you define the rebuild being over? Is it getting into the play-in? Is it making the playoffs? How do you define when a rebuild is officially over?
When a rebuild is officially over, that means that your team is going to be in the playoffs without having to contest to be in the playoffs without going through the play-in game.
So right? Top 6 for you.
You have to be in the top 6 for me, in my eyes. And the thing is as well, if you want to say officially this rebuild is over, you have to get further than just the first round of the playoffs. You have to at least make it to the semis, if not the Western Conference Finals. So you can be in that conversation as a team who actually has the pieces to contend for a title. That's what we heard in the past, right? When we had David Robinson, when we had Tim Duncan, we had Manu, we had Tony. The San Antonio Spurs, regardless of their record, they were one of those teams that everybody talked about and said, hey, this team is in the conversation as one of those that is going to be favored to be in the NBA Finals vying for a title. That is what you want to see. And that's when you can officially say, you know what? This rebuild is done because you have more than 1 or 2 stars in your lineup.
So let's say the Spurs go out there, win in 2 seasons, they go 48-34, 50-32, top 6 team in the West. Maybe not making noise, maybe winning 1 round of the playoffs. Is the rebuild over?
Yeah.
Are they still in rebuild mode? And speaking of rebuild, that's part of the draft, right? So the Spurs right now have the number 4 and number 8 pick in this June's draft. According to Jeff Garcia and Locked On Spurs, he has an article on Kens5.com, and it cites a source being from the Bleacher Report saying that the Spurs are high on Providence point guard Devin Carter entering the draft, and that Devin Carter has already worked out for Sacramento and Chicago, who are a lot lower in picks. Zachary Rees-Archet, the small forward from France, working out for the Spurs. Rees-Archet should be going in the top 2, so if the Spurs want him, might have to move up to get him. I was going back and forth with Eric Salinas, who's a big Spurs fan. He posts a lot of Spurs content on Twitter. And I was telling him that there's an NBA chart as to how the value of these picks are. And right now, if the Spurs want to move up to the number 1 overall pick, 4 and 8 actually has theoretically the value of the number 1 pick. And in fact, the number 1 pick would have to then send a second rounder to kind of even things out if you went by the trade value chart. And a lot of people don't believe in that value chart, but that's just kind of a baseline as to what it is.
Yeah.
But in looking at these mock drafts coming out, you're seeing certain names move up. You're seeing certain names move down. We talked about the fact yesterday how the NBA offered 12 green room spots for some of these prospects. Nikola Topic, not one of them. No. Rob Dillingham, not one of them. But then you see these other players like Devin Carter suddenly like, oh, I'm going to be in the green room.
Yeah,
right?
What is that indicative of? The when you fall down in the draft, right?
Yeah.
You fall down in the draft, you've just given up your spot to somebody else. So that means that as you move down, their stock rises. And I think that's the effect that we're seeing.
And it's funny because you and I mentioned that last week. I asked the question, Nikola Jokic gets hurt. Who benefits from it? And we both said Devin Carter benefits from it. And then all of a sudden, what do you see?
Boom.
Devin Carter making his way up. And that is all a supply and demand issue. There is not a very big supply of point guards. Last year there was. You had the Scoot Hendersons last year. You had the Thompson twins who could theoretically play two or a combo or maybe even a little bit of point. You've had in previous years when you had a Jaden Ivey and when you had a Cade Cunningham and when you had all of these point guards coming out. This year, there were two. Nikola Jokic and the guy from Providence. That was it. Devin Carter. That was all you had when it came to point guard prospects who were considered to be top 15, top 20 guys. So when one goes down with a partially torn ACL and it's the second knee injury he's had in 6 months, you're looking for a point guard. Devin Carter's your only one. He's the only one there.
Yeah.
So it forces you to either go off into the free agency pool or it forces you to take Devin Carter sooner than what you would normally think. But the thing is, not a bad player. He played 3 years in college, right?
A solid player, man.
Some people look at 3 years in college and think that that's actually a bad thing. You see some players right now who have 4 years of college, the Zach Edey's of the world. It's like, it's like they don't want to have them because they're already older than most of the prospects already by 2 or 3 years. Bainstein coming out saying Devin Carter is solid, though. He is. Says that he sees him as a Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, look at what David Outwater says. He says Castle at 4, Carter at 8. It's what Spurs should do is what he says.
Yeah, and okay. I saw a mock draft today. I want to say that it was CBS Sports' latest mock draft, and it said the Spurs getting Castle at 4 and Dillingham at 8. I'd be okay with that. You get an offensive dude at 8 and a defensive guy at 4.
Okay.
I'd be okay with that. The problem is that you can't teach Dillingham defense. You can't. That's the problem.
But if they're not bucket getters, man, and they can't play defense, if they're not bucket getters, that they don't play defense, they're not out there for defense. Yeah, I don't want them, dude. If the Spurs right now need bucket getters, they need to be able to put points up on the board because this cast of characters that they have, this plethora of talent that's surrounding Wemby, we've already said this. It ain't it, man. They're gonna probably run it back again, Mike. And what's gonna happen next year? The same damn thing, man.
Same thing's gonna happen.
Same thing.
Now, let's go to some entertainment news because we're doing an abbreviated show unless you want to take it on past 10:55. But let's go to the entertainment button.
All right, let me go ahead and look for it real quick here.
We don't have to do it if you don't want to.
No, I got it up here already. I just got to. Here it is. I got.
Some sad entertainment news today. Tejano legend Johnny Canales has passed away. Now, he wasn't the performer Johnny Canales. He was actually the host of the Johnny Canales show for decades, helping people, introducing people to Tejano music. He was based out of Corpus Christi, Texas. He passed away at the age of 77. Johnny Canales, man, that show was a staple in the Jimenez household growing up. My dad, my mom would watch it. My dad's a big Tejano music fan. And we would listen to it, and you'd have all of these acts go on there. Selena Quintanilla, her 13th birthday, performed on the Johnny Canales show. Later on, as a teenager, as she got older, she got more popular. She was on the show again with Selena y los Dinos. Passed away at the age of 77. What are your memories of Johnny Canales, who would tell the band to quote unquote take it away?
Take it away. It was always this calling card, man. It was great to see him. Johnny Canales is one of these guys, a pioneer in Tejano music, as far as showcasing the talent that was out there. And this was back in the heyday of Tejano music, where you had your Rams, you had your Emilio Navairas, you had a whole bunch of Tejano bands, man, based out of Texas, was the melting pot of Tejano. Specifically San Antonio, man. You had a lot of great groups coming through San Antonio back in the day. I remember specifically when I was in high school, man, everybody was always excited talking about Selena. They're talking about, again, Emilio Navaira. You're talking about Ram Herrera, Grupo Mas, all these bands, man. And it was great, to see Herrera is part of that, being able to introduce these bands before they became well known. Kind of like it was like American Bandstand for Tejano music back in the day. You had Dick Clark, we had Herrera, dude.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It was almost like Johnny Carson back in the day. If you were a comedian and Johnny Carson had you on stage, it was his way of saying that he approves of you as a comedian. Johnny Canales was that guy. He anointed you as the next big thing when it came to Tejano music. The Johnny Canales show debuted back in 1983. Not only did he have Selena y Los Dinos on there, but he had La Mafia, Mas, Intocable, Emilio Navarra, Fama, Jennifer Peña, Los Tigres del Norte. Lots of famous artists out there. He was on there for basically 2 decades, made a comeback, had a live performance recently. I'd say recently, within the past decade or so, there in Corpus Christi as well. It was a big deal, man. It was a big deal. And when I was a news reporter in Corpus Christi, they would have parts of his old set still around, and I would sometimes bump into it every once in a while. So Johnny Canales has passed away at the age of 77. Other entertainment news, there is a new documentary that premiered today on Hulu. Yeah. It came out just this morning called Brats. And believe it or not, Joe, I've already seen most of it.
I believe it, dude.
I woke up this morning and I watched most of it. You can go ahead and hit. You want to hit play on that just so while it's in the background?
Yeah, I'll put it in the back there. You can talk about
it. Okay, so remember Andrew McCarthy, who was a member of the Brat Pack. There he is right there. He was in a lot of movies back in the early 80s that were very, very popular, some of them with Molly Ringwald. And it talks about how New York Magazine labeled them the Brat Pack. And when you consider who the Brat Pack is, originally you're looking at like Ali Sheedy, you're looking at Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, and then to some extent Judd Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall, and all of these actors from the 80s. And how they hated the fact that they were called the Brat Pack. Well, Andrew McCarthy has not seen these people or talked to these people in 30 years. And the documentary is him going around calling all of these people, all of these famous actors from the 80s out of the blue, hasn't spoken to them in decades. And it's like, do you want to talk about how the Brat Pack label affected us? And these people have been shying away from the topic for about 25, 30 years. I mean, think about the Outsiders and Risky Business and, Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, all of these movies. One thing that I found interesting about it was the conversation he had with Emilio Estevez, and I'm not giving anything away. Emilio Estevez is the reason why they were called the Brat Pack, was because he got in close with a reporter from New York Magazine, thinking that New York Magazine reporter was his friend. And that guy said, dude, I wasn't your friend. I was a reporter the entire time. And he did this whole article about the excess of these people and what they're doing and the groupies that they have and all that stuff. Well, Andrew McCarthy actually confronts the reporter and interviews the reporter about whether or not he is regretful that he used the term Brat Pack because it kind of affected these people. Now, Joe, let me ask you this question, Joe. You look at St. Elmo's Fire, Risky Business, you see all these movies from back in the day.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that these were all Rob Lowe, that these were all really good actors who kind of got the short end of the stick because they weren't taken seriously?
Yeah, man. You look at the talent, that you have here in the Brat Pack, right? And this is a collection of young people that defined 80s, not only 80s pop, but also fashion. And they were in very iconic movies. If you didn't have this group of young people in your movie back in the day, it was not going to be a hit. It wasn't going to be looked at as much as, let's say, a lesser known actor from back in the 80s.
Right. These
were your it people back then. This is what was going to be the draw. This is what was going to bring that money, that box office money. These were your names right here.
The long and tall of it all is them basically saying we were super talented people.
Yeah.
But we got typecast.
Yeah, exactly. They did get typecast.
And when you look at some of these actors, I think it was Emilio Estevez in the documentary early on. It's like within the first 10 minutes of the documentary. Says, how many of us were in Scorsese movies? How many of us were in James Cameron movies? How many of us were in Steven Spielberg movies later on?
No.
And we were the stars of the 80s, and we had acting chops. But we were, once the 80s were over, people ditched us.
Yeah.
So you look at the Brat Pack, and when you think of Rob Lowe, I think of these cameos that he does in comedic roles, right? I don't see him as a very dramatic actor anymore. He was in the 80s, but I see him as, Wayne's World, and I see him in stuff like that. Molly Ringwald did nothing after that.
Well, she does now, and Rob Lowe too.
It's not big. It's not big.
It's the television. Now it's television.
Yeah, John Cryer was in a popular TV show for many years with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah,
2.5 Men. You have all of that going on, but I guess the only one that really broke out that I can think of that had a successful movie career after the 80s is probably Demi Moore. Demi Moore had Ghosts. She had a very big role in a few good movies.
You remember Striptease?
Yeah. Wasn't she G.I. Jane?
G.I. Jane.
Or was that Lori Petty? Or I think they both were in that movie.
Yeah, I think they were both.
But it was interesting flashback of Andrew McCarthy going back and talking to these famous actors from way back when, and they were all part of the same group, but he hasn't spoken to them since the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Joe Gonzalez. Rob Lowe made more money doing West Wing.
Yeah.
No doubt.
What a great show that was. Great show that was. But the Brat Pack, it's called Brat. It's on Hulu. I've seen half of it. Now, tomorrow, we're going to have a special guest.
Oh, yeah.
Spernandez will be with us, along with a famous actor. Now, we know him from American Me, right?
Yeah. Don't look at me, puppet.
Does this mean I got to watch the movie tonight?
That means you got to watch the movie to catch the little phrases that can be thrown out here.
Now, I think I've seen bits and pieces of American Me in high school and in college with my friend at my friend Alex's house.
It's brutal, bro. It's brutal.
So I know that there's a lot of like gang raping and stuff like that. So I think I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
If you were to tell me, other than the fact that it takes place in a prison and that there's gang rapes going on, I really don't remember the rest of the movie other than that. So I've seen it, I think. But we'll see. I'm going to watch it again tonight. Hey, everybody, wish me luck. Joe, if you want to take the show the rest of the way, that would be incredible. If you want to take them a while. But today's an emotional day for me. I've already cried today about this because my son, Justin, we're having a court hearing in 9 minutes right now. It's going to be on Zoom. And I'm going to petition the court to ask to be his legal guardian. His mom is supportive of this.
What a big day, man.
Justin has Down syndrome. He is my boy. He is, I call him my heart. He is my boy. And I want to have him forever. And, whatever happens in life, I want to be part of it. I want to be his dad forever. He calls me dad. And, that's all that really matters. He has no relationship with his biological father. And I just want to be part of his life forever. So I need to jump off and get on the court Zoom. Everybody wish me luck. But Joe, as Johnny Canales once said, as RIP, take it away.
Yeah, man. I'm going to be heading out too, man. I'm going to go and spend some time with my family. They've come into town because my son graduated yesterday. We had a big to-do. Everybody came in and celebrated my son's iconic moment. So I'm going to go ahead and spend the day with the family, maybe go to Market Square, take in some Tejano music, look at some of the wares they got over there, and just enjoy some family time, man. So we're both going to be out, but we'll be back tomorrow with our in-studio guests. So good luck to you, Mike.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Updates tomorrow.
We'll see you boys tomorrow. Peace. We're out.